Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I will give everyone just about a minute or so just to get jump on, but we will get going right at 12:01. We have a lot of content today, so let's get everybody on board and then we'll get going. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Selena Damian. I am the Student Loan Servicing Ombudsperson here at the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, the DFPI. This is our student loans updates and resources, our fall of 2025, our last webinar of the year. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I am joined today by Vanessa Garcia, who is a student loan support representative with Balance, who is a network organization with our Student Loan Empowerment Network. So she's here to help me share some of this information, and then she will be sharing information about the network as well. So let's see. How do I get this going here? I'm trying to move a slide. I'm handling the slides, everybody. So, all right, there we go. Just to start off with some housekeeping items, throughout the entire webinar, your mic and video will be muted or they are muted. You can use the Q&A function to enter any questions. This is a public forum, so please, not anything too personal, too complex. We will give you all our information so you can get in touch with us. This event is being recorded and will be available on our DFPI YouTube channel within the next few days. This information is accurate as of today. As we know, with student loans, things are ever changing, and we're trying to provide you the most clear and concise information, but this is what we have today. We are not attorneys. This is not legal advice, but just want to provide you the information to make the best choices for your loans. As far as the agenda today, we will be talking about loan types and limits, repayment plans, and IDR, income-driven repayment updates, public service loan forgiveness, buyback and reconsideration options, default, and then the Student Loan Empowerment Network and resources. Because we do have some new information, there is a lot of information today, but what I'm doing today, you'll see throughout the webinar, I've highlighted some items. Those are the items that are, I think, more significant, where the most changes are. So, as many of you know, on July 4th of this year, the One Big Beautiful Bill was signed. Moving forward, I'm going to be calling it the OB3 bill. It was signed into law, and this budget reconciliation bill is making numerous changes to the student loan system, the federal student loan system, and it will be affecting current and new student loan borrowers. I know that prior to this, we were already having numerous challenges with the safe forbearance, with forgiveness being on pause, and just the transition that we've had during the last year. So I'm hoping again that this information just uh, gives you a better idea of what options are best for you. And let me start. So about the DFPI, we are the California Consumer Protection Agency. We regulate companies of financial products. This includes private and federal student loan servicers. So these are all the companies that student loan borrowers are working with when they are trying to make their payments, call about information. We are the ones that license those companies here in California. We accept and we evaluate consumer complaints, and that includes complaints from student loan borrowers against their servicers. We do not accept complaints against the Department of Education because they are the federal agency, but we do accept complaints against your Mohila, Nelnet, Advantage, and servicers. And right now, with everything that's going on, it seems that the complaints are a good route to get information about your loans, to get clear answers, because we know that borrowers are having difficulties reaching their servicers. And then for us, advocates that work with borrowers, it's a good way for us to also document and to figure out really what's going on, especially when borrowers are having issues with their loans. At the DFPI, we also take enforcement and legal actions when companies are not in compliance. We enforce student loan related protections, so the California Student Borrower Bill of Rights and the California Student Loan Servicing Act, which is the law that allows us to license and examine servicers. And then we conduct education and outreach, such as this one for borrowers. In California, we have 4 million borrowers that owe $148 billion of student loan debt. Most of that debt is federal student loan. The average debt load of a borrower is 38,168. We don't have the highest default rate. We are about 6 or 7%. In the United States, borrowers owe $1.78 trillion of student loan debt. And we do know that there is a disproportionate debt burden held by women, low-income borrowers, and borrowers of color. In the US, borrowers aged 50 and older owe $355 billion in federal student loan debt, and it is one of the highest growing populations carrying the debt. So what we are seeing is that borrowers are having this debt for longer periods of time, and this was debt that they accrued when 20, 30 years prior, and they're just still holding on to this debt, unable to pay it off. And so we are seeing the effects now and probably will see the effects more when borrowers are into retirement age. So again, really important, and I'm glad everyone is here to get the information. I mentioned the California Student Borrower Bill of Rights. Again, I think more than ever, it's important that borrowers know their protections on the state level. Here at the DFPI, we know that we really are one of the few resources. We are the only agency that is able to assist borrowers working with their servicers. And although we can't compel the Department of Education to grant forgiveness, or we can't call them and just say, hey, we're having a problem with this borrower. What we can do is we can triage with the borrower and the servicer, and we can help borrowers on the state level. So this protection is really important because it sets the rules and regulations for these servicers that are taking care, are managing your loans. Basically, they have to work in the best interest of borrowers. They have to provide you accurate information for all your federal protections and your IDR plans. And we are aware that many times that they are not doing it. So it's important for us to be aware of this. It establishes special protections for military borrowers, those working in public service, older borrowers, and those with disabilities. It protects you from, or a borrower, from any negative consequences stemming from a sale, assignment, transfer, system conversion. This is extremely important because in the last few years, we've seen a lot of accounts being transferred. We've had a lot of, or some of the servicers where they're changing their platform. So we'll see accounts where borrowers can access their information, and then they'll get the information and maybe it's not accurate. So borrowers have to be safe from that, and they have to be able to access their account history, access the correct account history. Under the Student Borrower Bill of Rights, a borrower has the right to take legal action if their servicer fails to comply with any of these laws and if they are harmed financially. So they can actually hire an attorney and take action and sue for punitive damages. Some other California protections that are available. One is the California Private Student Loan Collections Reform Act. And basically, this is for private lenders when they try to sue borrowers. So if you have a private loan and a lender or another collector is trying to sue you, they have to provide certain documents before they can take action, and a court cannot enter a judgment in their favor if they haven't provided these documents. So this is very important. As I mentioned, the Student Loan Servicing Act and the Borrower Bill of Rights, effective January 1st of last year of 2024, these laws also cover institutions that provide income share agreements, ISAs, or retail installment contracts. So we are considering them as servicers. These are different type of higher education financing products. These are new to the market, but we're seeing a lot more of these. So this is different than the federal student loans. These are agreements that you sign with the schools. If you graduate, then you make a certain amount of money, you owe them a certain percentage. And then your federal protections, of course, the Higher Education Act, and then consumer protections on the federal level, the Truth in Lending Act, and the Fair Credit Reporting Act. I've been mentioning servicers just to give everyone a reminder, the difference between your lender and your servicer. For the federal loans, Department of Education is your lender. And then these are your federal student loan servicers. These are going to be your main point of contact. They track your loans, account history, send the monthly bills. They are calculating the interest on your loans. They're collecting the payments, processing the changes, IDR plans, and then processing all the deferments and forbearances. When it is time for a borrower to obtain discharge or when they have reached discharge, they are the ones that are processing those discharge once the Department of Education has reviewed the accounts and given the green light. Basically, they're not the ones that are authorizing the discharge, but they are processing those discharges. So there's communication going on between them and the Department of Education. A borrower may be transferred to several servicers, and you cannot request to move your servicer unless only when you consolidate. So when you consolidate, you do have an option to select a new servicer, but these are going to be your servicers. As I said, I've highlighted some of the information where there are changes. Let's talk about current federal loans. So all current federal loans, the Department of Education loans, they are your William D. Ford, your direct loan program. You're going to have your direct loans, which are subsidized or unsubsidized. The difference between these two is that the government pays the interest while you are in school, at least half time for the subsidized loans. There are limits on the direct loans. The unsubsidized loan is where a borrower pays all the interest from the time that the aid is dispersed. So, of course, subsidized are going to be lower cost in the long run, but that's the difference. So you will see that sometimes people think it's a different type of loan, but it's really the same one. It has to do with interest. You will see DLS or DLUS on your student aid on your portal. Then you have your Parent Plus loans. These are available to parents of undergrad students, cannot be transferred back to the child, typically has higher interest rate and origination fees. Currently, for parent loans, you can borrow up to the full cost of attendance. They have no limit. So if you have one child, children, three children, and you can borrow up to the cost for all of them, whatever is needed, whatever is not covered by their own loans. Then you have the Direct Grad Plus loan. These are unsubsidized, available to students pursuing grad or professional degrees. Again, you can borrow up to the full cost of attendance. Direct consolidation loans, you can combine any of these three previous loans into one loan and then just have one payment and one servicer. Very important when you're consolidating these, just the Parent Plus loans will limit your access to some of the plans. So it's really important when you're doing those consolidations. I have on here the Fell and the Perkins loans. These are no longer available. However, they're still held by many borrowers. You can consolidate these Fell and Perkins loans into direct consolidation loans in order to get access to pretty much at this point, it's going to be to public service loan forgiveness. And then if there's any future initiatives for borrowers or loan forgiveness initiatives. So as you saw, what I had highlighted there, these are the first and most significant changes. For Parent Plus loans, they are now setting limits on borrowing. So starting July 1st of 2026, parents can only borrow $20,000 per year for each dependent student with the lifetime limit of $65,000 per student. You can no longer borrow up to the cost of attendance. The department is eliminating the Direct Grad Plus program, and they're setting new limits for graduate and professional students. Students in a grad program will be limited to $20,500 or $100,000 aggregate total, and students in a professional program will be limited to $50,000 or $200,000 total. The difference between a graduate and a professional program is that a professional program requires a license for you to enter that field. So it's going to be your lawyers, your doctors, psychiatrists, those type of fields. It also establishes a new aggregate lifetime loan limit of 257,500 for all borrowers. And that's regardless of any amounts that you've repaid, any amounts that's been forgiven. This does not include Parent Plus loans and any existing borrowers that are enrolled in a program. So if you're currently enrolled and you're enrolled through June 30th, you're exempt from these borrowing caps for 3 years. So essentially now there's limits. Who are going to be affected the most are parent borrowers and graduate and professional students. It's not going to affect undergrad borrowing. The OB3 bill also permits institutions to set lower annual loan limits for students and parents as long as they're doing it across the board for the same program. We may see schools setting limits as well. And then I want to mention private loans. So private loans are made by lenders such as a bank, credit union, state agency, or school. They're not funded or subsidized by the federal government. I think with some of these new loan limits, what we may be seeing is borrowers having to turn more and more to private loans. Could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, but we've always encouraged borrowers to take out federal loans first because of the protections, but now that they're setting those limits, borrowers will be turning more and more, maybe turning more and more to these. So it's really important you understand the terms, you understand the interest. These loans may have variable interest rates. They don't have the flexible repayment terms and forgiveness options provided by federal student loans. And when they do, right now we are having issues with Navient. Navient has a program for a discharge program that's similar to the federal borrower defense discharge program, where they're offering where a borrower can have their loans discharged if they attended a certain school, if there was predatory behavior. In many cases, we're seeing that even though a borrower had their federal loan discharged for the same term, for the same school, for the same program, Navient is not discharging the loan. They're saying they don't meet the criteria. In that case, there's not much that the federal government can do in that case. So they set their own terms regarding those discharges. It still doesn't make sense. We're still looking into that. We're aware of that. Even Congress members have stepped in, but my point is that these lenders pretty much can set their own forgiveness terms, and they don't go by just what the federal government does. So it's just really important to understand what you're taking on. These private loans do require an established credit record or a cosigner. So many times these students, if they're coming in, if they've already exhausted all these federal loans, parents have already exhausted their parent limits, they're going to need maybe a cosigner. They're going to be needing one, especially if they have adverse credit history. And then one thing to know is once you refinance into a private loan, you cannot revert to a federal loan. So if you have federal loans, you're being offered a better interest rate. Make sure that you understand what you're losing, and these private lenders should also be notifying you at the time that you sign up for these private loans that you are missing out on these federal benefits. So one of the changes, again, something that we may expect to see more private loans getting into the market. We don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but it's important to be aware of that. So now let's move on to our repayment plans. So there are major changes with the repayment plans. I'm going to give you a high-level overview because a lot of this is, first of all, the first time that I'm presenting on this information. We know just the basic of what we know since the OB3 bill was passed, but I do want to just make sure borrowers are aware of what's coming again starting July 1st of 2026. Currently, borrowers have access to two buckets of federal repayment plans. You have your standard term payment plans, or extended, graduated, and graduated extended. This has nothing to do with income. It's basically a set amount for a set amount of time and you're done. There's no discharge related with this or attached to this. Then you have your income-based plans, your IBR, Pay, ICR, which is the only plan available for parent borrowers, and then Save, which is currently enjoined due to the injunction. These are your income-based plans that are based on your income. They're not at all based on your balance, and these are the plans that you need to be on for forgiveness, whether it's public service loan forgiveness or income-based forgiveness. So right now, borrowers have all these options, your term plans and your income-based plans. Um, so for all current borrowers, if you have loans that were taken out before July 1st, 2026, you will continue to have access to the bucket of income-driven repayment plans, which includes the IBR, ICR, and the pay plan. You can still enroll in these. There will be no restriction on enrolling unless you take out more loans after July 1st, 2026. So this is really important if you're mid-program, maybe mid-grad program. By July 1st, 2028, borrowers with loans right now will only have access to your standard plans and then the IBR plan. So when I go back to the screen over here, you're going to have access to that first one, the IBR plan, and then the new repayment assistance plan, which I will talk about right now. Parent Plus borrowers, this is really important. After July 1st next year, Parent Plus borrowers will no longer be eligible for income-driven repayment plans. Thus, they will no longer be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. So in order for borrowers that have Parent Plus loans currently, they have to consolidate and have the loans consolidated disbursed prior to June 30th, 2026 to be able to access the IBR plan. So they are getting rid of all the other plans, including the ICR plan, but a Parent Plus borrower that consolidates prior to June 30th, has the loan already fully disbursed, will be able to get on IBR. So will be their only opportunity to access the income-driven plan and PSLF. So really important for Parent Plus borrowers. If you are a parent that is in public service, has loans, and has been a little iffy about applying for PSLF, you don't know if you qualify, it's really time to get in there with your loans and talk to somebody and find out what you need to do so you don't lose access. It might be your only chance for forgiveness moving forward. For all new borrowers with any loans disbursed after July 1st of 2026, they will only have access to two plans. The new standard repayment plan is consolidating all those term plans into one plan with fixed monthly payment. This is what they have determined is the repayment term. It's going to be based on your balance. As you can see here, the term goes from 10 to 25 years. They're getting rid of, for new borrowers, they will no longer have access to those IBR, ICR, pay, repay, none of that. They're only going to have access to the RAP plan, the repayment assistance plan. So the repayment assistance plan, it bases a borrower's monthly payment on your adjusted gross income and your family size. This is different than the other income-driven repayment plans that base your payment on a percentage of your discretionary income. The repayment or the RAP plan is probably going to be more costly, a higher monthly payment than all those other IDR plans. There will be it lowers your monthly payment by $50 per month per dependent. All borrowers on the RAP plan will have a minimum monthly payment of $10. We will no longer see $0 payments. Similar to the SAVE plan, this RAP plan does have an interest subsidy to address negative amortization. So basically, this is similar to SAVE. So if your monthly payment doesn't cover your interest, the government will subsidize that unpaid interest. And there's also a principal subsidy so that your principal balance, what they want is your balance to go down at least by $50 every month. And if your monthly payment does not make your balance go down, or your principal balance doesn't go down by at least $50, they will cover the remaining amount. So there's an interest and a principal subsidy. Parent Plus borrowers will not qualify for the RAP plan. New Parent Plus borrowers after July 1st, 2026 are not qualifying. So if you have as I said, if you have a Parent Plus loan now and you're thinking about you haven't consolidated, you do need to consolidate to get access to get on ICR and then eventually get on the RAP plan. Under the RAP plan, any balance that remains after 30 years is discharged. So as you can see with the IBR, as you may know, with some of the IBR plans, you can receive discharge after 20 years. Under this new plan, it's 30 years. RAP is PSLF eligible, which is a good thing. So these are going to be the two new plans that will be available for new borrowers after July 1st. If you're in between, you may have access to the older ones for a few more years, but you will be moved out of that plan out of those plans starting 2028. So some of the updates for I've mentioned saved. Currently, you cannot enroll in the program. Borrowers remain on that administrative forbearance, and interest began accruing on the save forbearance on August 1st. It's really important. We've received several complaints I've been receiving from borrowers about interest not being applied correctly, accruing incorrectly. Many borrowers haven't seen interest accrue since pre-COVID. So now when they're seeing everything update, the numbers are not matching. So just really important, go in there and make sure that your interest looks correct. If you have any questions, you can call the servicer, but what I'm suggesting is to file a complaint and have them actually look at your account and try to do an account history to make sure that that interest is being applied correctly. To receive income-driven repayment or PSLF credit, you have to move into another IDR plan. Otherwise, if you choose to remain on the safe forbearance and just not make the payments and you're okay with the interest accruing, we do expect those borrowers to be moved into another plan automatically starting next year. We don't know for sure yet where they'll be moved to, if they're going to be moved into the next uh, lowest monthly payment plan, or we don't have that information yet. So if you choose to do nothing, then you will just be moved automatically. Just keep making sure you're reading those updates from your servicers. I get a lot of sometimes, oh, I didn't know my payments were restarting. I didn't know this was happening. I didn't know this was happening. Sometimes things have been at a standstill for so long that borrowers, they get caught up with life, but really, it's really important that you're reading those notices. And, that's why we're here for as well. Just shoot over those questions. IDR applications. Borrowers can now apply for IBR, ICR, and pay. We know those were at a standstill for a while as well. They have started processing those applications. The IBR partial, so for the IBR plan, that was the plan a lot of people were trying to move into because that is the safest plan. It's separate from it was created separately from all the other income-based plans. So that one is not going anywhere. So a lot of borrowers were moving into that one. However, there is a provision with the IBR plan that you must have a partial financial hardship. So a lot of borrowers their applications were being set aside because they didn't meet that criteria or they were being denied. Well, that PFH has been removed, and Ed is currently working with servicers so they can update their system. So if you apply for IBR and you were denied or it's been a while, it may be due to the fact that you didn't have the financial hardship and it's been set aside. So again, we are waiting to find out how servicers are going to process, if they're going to request that borrowers update the application or they're just going to go do it. But if you've submitted multiple applications, they're going to be looking at the most recent one. But that IBR financial hardship has been removed, which is a good thing because that means now pretty much as long as you apply, you're going to be able to enroll. We highly recommend that you apply electronically for PSLF, for the IBR applications. And then IDR forgiveness has resumed for all except those on save. I have borrowers that have reached out to me. They consolidated for the IDR adjustment 2 years ago, and they're finally seeing forgiveness. It's really a sigh of relief for those of us that are working with borrowers long term, and things are moving along slowly but surely, and there are some positives in all this that's going on. So get yourself in a position where you can either get on your PSLF track or for IDR forgiveness. Let me stop here. Vanessa, are there any questions? I didn't really see any. Is there anything that came in the chat or I have somebody that raised their hand?
Now that we're talking about the different IDR plans, we did have a question about the confusion. Is an IBR the same thing as an IDR? So just to touch up
Yeah.
on that, sometimes people use the umbrella as an IDR is all the plans together. So
It's so
different.
confusing, all these acronyms.
Yes, so
No,
we
I
did
understand.
that
So
one.
when I say IDR, that's the entire umbrella of the income-based plans. And then under that umbrella, you have your income-based repayment, income contingent repayment, pay, repay, and save. So when I say IDR, I just mean the overall income-based plans, not those standard term plans. So IBR is the plan that is like the original income-based plan, the one that's solid. It's like the Flintstone plan. It's not going anywhere. And so that's the one that we're hearing a lot of borrowers want to move into. IBR has a 20-year forgiveness period. So again, it's a little more, borrowers are a little more, they want to apply for that plan because it's 20 years instead of the 25 years if they qualify. But anyway, IDR is the umbrella. IBR is one of the is one of those plans. And then I saw somebody raise their hand. I don't know if we can, you can put your question in the chat maybe. I don't know how to, if we can, oh, I see two hands raised. If you want to just put your question and I'll answer it. I don't want to unmute everyone. I don't know how to do that. Are there questions?
So there
Please.
is a couple of questions. Can you please explain IDR forgiveness?
Sure. So the IDR plans all come with a forgiveness component to them. Essentially, if you pay for a certain period of time, you make your payment on a monthly basis under that plan. After the period, it could be 20, 25, 30 years, then the balance is discharged, interest and all. So that's the IDR forgiveness. It's different than the public service loan forgiveness program. So those are two of the most common really discharge programs that we see.
We have one more for you, Selena. What options exist for master's or post-grad plan?
As far as forgiveness or
The
borrowing,
different plans.
lending.
The different plans that are available for master's or grad.
Right, the different payment plans. Well, again, it's going to depend on when you borrow them.
Okay.
Yeah, so all borrowers are going to have access to the standard plan and the repayment assistant payment plan starting July 1st, 2026. So, and it's all going to depend on when you took out the loans as well. So if you're enrolled in the program currently, you have access to all the payment plans that are available, including all the IDR plans. But if you borrow anything after July 1st of 2026, then you'll be considered a new borrower, and then your access to the repayment plans will change and they'll be limited.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to public service loan forgiveness. I know this is always a hot topic, and just want to remind everyone, the public service loan forgiveness, it was created in 2007. It was created by Congress through the legislative process, and it is signed into federal law. So student loan forgiveness is granted after meeting certain criteria for 120 months. You must have the right type of loan, eligible payment under one of those income-driven plans, that income-based bucket, and then have the qualifying employment. A lot of borrowers ask about PSLF buyback. I'm not going to talk about the requirement so much because that could take a whole other webinar, which we do have just PSLF webinars, but PSLF buyback, we're getting a lot of questions about that right now, especially with a lot of borrowers that are on the PSLF, on the save forbearance. So for the last over a year now, many borrowers have not been accumulating credit towards PSLF. department created this program where you can buy back periods of in-school deferment, of grace, of forbearance. So actually you can't buy in-school deferment, I'm sorry, but you can buy periods of forbearance. This includes save forbearance months. So if you are right now at the 120 and you have, if you were getting credit for all the save forbearance months and you already have the 120 of qualifying employment, you can use the buyback if you still have a balance, and if buying back these months will complete your total of 120. So for example, let's say these right here, this little bar graph or whatever, this little picture here, they show those in yellow. If you're not receiving credit for those because of save forbearance or another type of forbearance, you can request to buy those months back. How they'll calculate those months is they will look at what you were paying the month before and the month after, and then you'll have to pay back that amount. So let's say you were on a $0 payment for uh, the months previous and then right after, then that's what you would owe for that month. Essentially, you could get to your 120. So there, the buyback is you're going back and buying those months. I've seen people buy up to 2 years, getting agreements, being able to buy up to 2 years of forbearance. They'll go back and look at your history. So you can do that with the Department of Education. They're the ones that review it. They send you the agreement, and then you pay the servicer, who in turn sends the information to Department of Ed and then processes the discharge. So we have the buyback option. There was a hold on the buyback option delays because of everything that was going on in the courts. And then, so we've seen delays, but we also have seen these moving forward. But you do have to be at the 120. So if you're at the 115, if you're trying to apply for January, you'll be at 120. You'll have to wait until then. So qualifying employer, I do want to mention this because this is unrelated to the OB3 bill, but this is something that's been in the news lately. So October 30th, Department of Education released a final rule regarding PSLF qualifying employers. So when I go back here, as you can see, these little bubble, that this has to do with this qualifying employment. So the new rules that Ed has released would allow them to disqualify an employer that engages in what they consider substantial illegal purpose or illegal activity. Such illegal activity includes aiding and abetting, violation of federal immigration law, supporting terrorism, aiding and abetting illegal discrimination, violation of state laws, and providing certain medical services. What does this mean for you? Well, at this point, nothing. So what the department could do is they could determine that an employer is conducting one of these activities. They don't have to prove it in court. It doesn't have to be anything formal, legal. They just have to determine that they feel an agency. It could be a government, nonprofit agency is conducting any of this activity, and they could disqualify them. This will be going into effect July 1st, 2026. We already have 3 lawsuits that were filed immediately against the department because what they're arguing is that, as I mentioned before, PSLF was created by Congress. It's in the law that they have no authority to enact such a rule, that they don't have that the department does not have the authority to change the definition of qualifying employer. So for you right now, it means nothing. You continue qualifying your employment, you continue paying, you continue on your PSLF track. Again, if you've been on the fence about whether I qualify or not, whether I should apply, I think this is a good time to get yourself in the PSLF track, find out where you are. An employer, this would disqualify employers, not individual employees, but it will still affect borrowers that are on the PSLF track. So an employer will be able to appeal the ruling, and the department stated that it will probably only affect about 10 employers a year. Regardless, it's still being challenged, and with good cause. So it's being challenged. As of right now, nothing is changing with the PSLF program. So you may see things on the news. I know it sounds alarming, but as of right now, you continue working, you continue certifying your payments, and then continue using the buyback and the reconsideration if you're not agreeing with your count. So just want to point this out. This has nothing to do with the OB3. This is a separate rule that was just rolled out. Some other updates regarding total permanent disability discharge. Processing has moved from the Department of Education to Department of Ed from Nelnet. So total permanent disability discharge is a program for a borrower that has federal loans if they are medically, if they are on Social Security or are on total disability and they're receiving Social Security disability, or a medical professional can certify, they can have their um, federal loans discharged. So discharges are still being processed. We've seen some issues and unexplained denials, but that's why we're here working with borrowers. The Borrower Defense Discharge Program, I talked about it a little bit earlier. If you're waiting on a review, you can request forbearance directly from your servicer. The Project for Predatory Student Lending, who has been leading the charge on the borrower defense it's now the Sweet versus McMahon case. If you want any updates, you can go onto their page, but those were for the class action lawsuit, the discharges. The OB3 bill has affected this. The new applications will be reviewed under previous stricter rules. So the previous Biden administration rolled out new rules that would make it easier for borrowers to prove that they were defrauded by these institutions. So they were basically, these applications can be very cumbersome. A borrower has to prove, the benefit, they have to prove that they were lied to, provide documents. I mean, it's a difficult application. And so new rules were rolled out to make it easier for borrowers, that burden of proof issue. But now with the OB3, they've moved back to the previous stricter rules and have paused the Biden rules for 10 years. So again, that's why we're here to help you. Another change with the OB3 bill is forbearances and deferments. It eliminates the unemployment and economic hardship deferments, and then it limits the borrower's time in forbearance to 9 months within any 24-month period. So you could request forbearance up to 3 years. That's not happening anymore. So you're going to have to really get yourself on an income-based plan, get yourself on track with those payments, but they're not going to allow forbearances and deferments long-term as they were before. The reduction in force at the Department of Education and the government shutdown will cause delays. They are causing delays in processing, and then a lot of delays with refunds. They've even affected me as an advocate in our communication. Before, I used to be able to contact them, get information for borrowers, clarification on these programs, on these updates, press releases, things that were going on. Our communication is now very limited, which is why it's very important which is why we're doing this, right? So that we can step up, provide you what we know, and provide you the resources. Borrowers are encouraged to use the automated systems to recertify their employment for PSLF, to apply for PSLF, apply for income-driven repayment, use the income tax retriever, and then for other discharges. That way you can track, because you can apply for the TPD online as well as the borrower defense discharges. But it's very important to be able to get these. I've seen IDR applications turn around in about 2 days in some cases. So, and then other borrowers that have submitted everything manually, and someone has to actually go through and review those. So again, everything is being affected at this moment. Now I am going to hand it over to Vanessa so she can talk to you about default and delinquency.
Yes, we had one question though, Selena, if you can please
Yeah.
help with this one. What is the processing time for PSLF buyback? Does it take more time than a year from the time you submit the application to hear back? So this is something that has been asked a little bit on the chat. What do you think?
I was seeing up to a year, up until maybe 2, 3 months ago, and then they slowly started processing. I've seen some buybacks in 3 to 4 months. And honestly, there is no rhyme or reason. We are not able to find out how they're putting people in line, how they're processing. It really is, we have no idea. So I have seen prior to, I think, the beginning of summer, everything was on hold. So I was seeing borrowers that had up to a year with the buyback. And at that point, many were also getting the responses and they were saying, oh, you qualify for PSLF. And it had nothing to do with buyback. It was just that they were able to move out of the plan and continue accruing credit. So yeah, unfortunately, and like I said, we're not able to get any sense of how they're processing these applications.
Okay. All right, thank you. Well, thank you, Selena. Let's give you a little bit of a break here. We're going to talk about defaults. And so delinquency is the first day after you miss a student loan payment. Your loan becomes past due or delinquent. So if you're a borrower that is in delinquency, you've missed that day, please reach out to your servicers immediately so you can see if there's an option available for forbearance, or if there's a hardship going on, if there's any options that are available before the delinquency status. Delinquency status, they also affect your credit report. So something to work with your servicer when you're in a delinquency status to try to take care of. And as far as default, for a federal loan, you are in default if you don't make your scheduled student loan payments for at least 270 days. So the default resolution group is the default servicer. And if you have, of course, federal loans, that information can be found as soon as you log into your studentaid.gov account. It's going to give you a loan status. It's going to tell you your loans are in default and the information on the default resolution group so that you can contact them. As of June 30th, 2025, 5.3 million borrowers are in default. 4.3 million borrowers are in a late stage delinquency. So a lot of people started seeing the effects it took on their credit report back in May. So again, if it's a delinquency status and you're not in default, please contact your servicer to see the options that may be available for you. Next slide.
All right, I'm trying to do this. Sorry. What
Thank you.
happened? I was doing just fine. Let's see. Oh, there we go.
Okay, so consequences of default. Ed reports the default to consumer reporting agencies. Up to 15% of borrowers' disposable pay may be garnished. A borrower's federal income tax refund, Social Security benefits, and certain other federal benefits will be offset through the Treasury Offset Program. Reported to the Credit Alert Verification Reporting System. The U.S. Department of Justice may sue the borrower on the behalf of Ed. A borrower may be assessed collection charges, including loan collection fees, TOP processing fees, court costs, and attorney fees. So this default status, once you're in there, you do have to contact the default resolution group so that you can try to get out of default. We're seeing a lot of borrowers that are now getting sued or getting notices about their pay getting garnished. So please contact the default resolution group if you have that status on your studentaid.gov account. They do have that information available for you to make contact with them so that you can take care of the default and see what options may be available for you. Next. Okay, so like Selena did mention, I am the student loan representative here at the Student Loan Empowerment Network. Now, the Student Loan Empowerment Network is a state initiative funded by the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, DFPI, to help Californians navigate student loan repayment. Here is our website. Next. So we provide free student loan support for California residents only. We have 13 nonprofit organizations across California providing one-on-one support on managing your student loans. Our student loan counselors and legal aid partners provide assistance by helping you understand your student loans and repayment options. They'll help look into forgiveness or cancellation to see if you qualify for that, and they can help you also resolve a default status. They can also help with developing a personal budget to manage the repayment strategies with your one-on-one counselor. Next. So we're here to help. Call us or visit us online and get matched with an agency by clicking fill out the form on our website. Our phone number is listed 888-774-2227. Now, once you do visit the website or call us, what to expect once you complete the form, you will get matched with an agency. So please allow them 72 business hours to make contact by phone and or email. Your counselor will help you schedule a session to conduct thorough review of your existing student loans, your situation, your status. They will be asking you questions, so please have access to your studentaid.gov account if they were federal loans, or your credit report if they were private loans, so they can assist as best as possible to help you with managing your student loans. So again, we're here to help, so please take our phone number and our website so that we can go ahead and connect you with one of the 13 nonprofit organizations for California. So we do hear very often student loan scams. And sometimes even if you Google student loan help, a lot of resources come up, but just please be cautious. If you receive a call, a text, a letter offering assistance, most of these scammers do ask for you to pay a fee, and we do want to make sure that you have caution of that. Some of these are not people that want to help, they're just scam related, so please contact us. Google their information before you give anything private over the phone. Do your research on the company. Do not give them, your PIN for for FAFSA. Don't give them information over the phone. If you feel like it might be a scam, ask those important questions before giving that information. So do not subscribe to any monthly service, sign, or contract via DocuSign to provide payment information. Check your portals for any communication or change in guidance. Sometimes we do change loan servicers. That information is going to be available on your studentaid.gov. So remember, there is nothing a company can do for you that you cannot do on your own for free. If you receive multiple calls a day offering special access, guaranteed it may be a scam. File a complaint if you have been a victim of fraud with the DFPI or FTC. Next.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. These are just some additional links, FSA, your main portal, PSLF reconsideration, the Ombudsman FSA feedback link, and then, of course, my email, our complaint email. You have the information. I'll put it back up on the screen for the Empowerment Network. I do want to highlight here or put a link on here for the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education. It's a little known agency here in California, but they are the ones that license private institutions. So if you are dealing with a private institution closure, they do have an Office of Student Aid Relief where they can provide tuition reimbursement. If you are a Californian let's say you were in progress attending school and they closed down, they may be able to provide you tuition reimbursement. So OSTAR does that. Here's their link. And then the CFPB, although there also have been a lot of cutbacks there, you can still file complaints with them and they will try to work with your servicers on your behalf. So these are some important numbers and links. And then Vanessa, do you see any? I have 6 minutes. I'm going to put it back up on the They're on the student loan
I have
empowerment.
yes, please. I have had a couple questions about these slides. Selena, will you be sharing them for those that signed up? Will they be getting an email so that they can view the slides, or are they only going to be available when the YouTube video comes?
It is my understanding they're only going to be available on the DFPI on the YouTube page. However, I can talk to Ku and find out if we can email them to
Oh,
registrants.
okay, from the individual slides.
Mhm. Then I
I
see someone raise their hand. If they could just put their question in the Q&A. I know it was a lot of information, a lot of new information. And as we get more information on the repayment assistance, on the eligibility, but I know it's a lot. We're already at the end of 2025, so we have 6 months to obtain more information. As much as we get it, we will be sharing. We work really closely with the folks at the network, so we are training and communication with them constantly to get us all up to date with the information to be able to assist you. So I don't expect everyone to learn everything, but if there's something that stood out here that it's going to affect you, yeah, please reach out.
Selena, we have one more question.
Yeah.
This is regarding the shutdown. So, should we delay consolidating or switching any of the plans? Is any of this affecting because of the shutdown, the government shutdown? I'm sorry.
Right. As of right now, it hasn't affected yet. It may affect consolidations because it is funding them. So if anything, it's going to take longer for them to be funded. So if if you're trying to consolidate before the July 1st, then it would be best to consolidate sooner. Again, reach out to us. I don't want to just give a general, yes, consolidate without seeing your specific loans because each case is different. But yes, the shutdown will affect consolidations because those are funded by the Department of Education. Anyone else? Anything else?
No, most of this we went over. I
Okay.
think we are good.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're 3 minutes early. Thank you everyone for joining us for our last webinar. Please reach out to us, the Student Loan Network. They're there to help. They're available. And they are some of the best even legal aid agencies throughout the state. So if you even need an in-person consultation, they could even set that up for you. But we are here to assist you. Thank you again and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vanessa.